Buckle up, everyone, because today we are taking a deep dive into Tesla and more specifically, their wild new Cybercab.
Yeah, this thing is straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? It's like, picture this. You need a ride, so you hail a cab, but instead of like a regular car pulling up, it's this sleek little pod with no steering wheel, no pedals, nothing, just you and a seat.
And get this, it's supposed to be as cheap as taking the bus or the train.
Exactly, and that's what has everyone buzzing. Tesla just unveiled this prototype, and the tech world is going nuts trying to figure out if they can actually pull it off.
Well, that's what we're here to unpack, right? I mean, can they really make this happen, especially with all the regulations?
Yeah.
And, Tesla's history with self-driving tech.
Exactly. We're going to go beyond the hype and look at the nitty-gritty. Is the Cybercab a game changer or just another Tesla pipe dream?
It's definitely a bold move, no question about it. And for a lot of people, it raises a bigger question about Tesla's direction. Are they moving away from actually making cars and going all in on this autonomous driving tech?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Especially because Elon Musk just came out and said that making a traditional $25,000 car just doesn't make sense anymore.
Wow.
Right. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Tesla, the company that's like synonymous with electric vehicles, is basically saying they don't see a future in affordable EVs.
So where does that leave the rest of us who, aren't millionaires?
Well, that's where the Cybercab comes in. Maybe this is their way of offering cheaper transportation without having to deal with the headache of making millions of affordable cars.
It's a clever workaround if you think about it, bypassing those manufacturing challenges and going straight for the autonomous shared ride model.
Yeah, but even if they can figure out the whole production thing, there's another huge obstacle, the regulations.
Oh, yeah, the regulatory maze is a beast of its own.
I mean, Musk is saying they're aiming for a 2026 launch, which sounds crazy ambitious when you look at what other robotaxi companies have gone through.
Oh, absolutely. Companies like Cruise and Waymo have been burning through cash and hitting roadblock after roadblock, trying to navigate all the red tape around autonomous vehicles.
And don't forget, the current U.S. regulations, they actually limit how many self-driving cars are allowed on the road right now.
Right, which means Tesla might only be able to roll out like 2,500 Cybercabs at first.
A far cry from Musk's very high-volume production dreams.
It's a classic clash of visions. Tesla's grand plans versus the reality of government regulations.
And then there's the whole scrutiny around Tesla's full self-driving system, FSD, as they call it.
Yeah, the NHTSA, the folks in charge of road safety in the U.S., are currently investigating FSD because there's been a string of accidents involving Tesla vehicles, even a fatality.
Wow.
Right? And these incidents have raised some serious red flags about how reliable Tesla's technology really is, especially in tricky situations like driving in fog or dealing with glare.
That makes you wonder, why is Tesla getting so much heat compared to other companies working on self-driving cars?
Well, one thing that sets Tesla apart is their decision to use mostly cameras for their autonomous driving system. They've said it's a way to keep costs down, but a lot of experts are skeptical. They argue that relying mainly on cameras might not cut it when it comes to handling complex driving scenarios.
Especially compared to systems that use other sensors too, like LiDAR, right?
Exactly. LiDAR uses lasers to create like a 3D map of everything around the car, which gives it a much more detailed view.
So while other companies are investing in all these different sensors, Tesla's putting all their chips on the camera strategy.
It's a bold move for sure, but it does make you wonder if they're cutting corners on safety to save a buck.
And to make things even more complicated, the NHTSA hasn't actually confirmed if those Tesla vehicles involved in the recent accidents were using this latest camera-only system.
Yeah, so we're left with a lot of unanswered questions about how well Tesla's technology actually performs. And that lack of transparency is definitely fueling the skepticism.
And let's be honest, Tesla doesn't exactly have a spotless track record when it comes to FSD.
You're right. There have been reports about accidents involving Tesla vehicles that some say could have been avoided. And just last year, they had to issue a huge software update for almost 2 million vehicles to address safety concerns, all because the NHTSA asked them to.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly inspire confidence.
It definitely casts a shadow over their ability to meet that ambitious 2026 deadline for the Cybercab.
So it seems like Tesla is facing an uphill battle on multiple fronts. They're betting big on this radical camera-based system, while also dealing with all these regulatory hurdles and a past that's riddled with safety concerns.
It's a tangled web for sure.
It's enough to make your head spin. But hey, that's why we're here to untangle it all.
Exactly. We'll keep digging deeper into this story and see if Tesla's gamble pays off.
Or if it blows up in their face.
Stay tuned, folks, because this ride is just getting started. It really makes you think about the economics of it all. Can robotaxis actually compete with owning a car?
Or even public transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big question. If these robotaxis aren't actually affordable, the whole thing falls apart.
Right? We're talking about a massive change in how we get around, and it all depends on whether Tesla can deliver
Yeah.
on that promise of cheap on-demand rides.
And we can't forget about the potential ethical issues that come with all this autonomous vehicle stuff. Like, what happens to all the people who drive for a living? Taxi drivers.
Truck drivers.
Exactly. And what about the whole surveillance aspect? I mean, if these self-driving cars are constantly watching everything around them, that's a lot of data being collected about us.
It's like we're on the verge of this huge technological leap, but we need to make sure we're not jumping into the abyss without thinking about the consequences.
Absolutely. And going back to Tesla's approach, one of the biggest concerns is that reliance on cameras. Think about it like this. You're trying to drive down a busy street at night, but you can only see what's directly in front of you.
No peripheral vision at all.
That's basically what a camera-only system is dealing with.
Wow, that's a really good way to put it. It really highlights why a lot of experts are skeptical, right? If Tesla's system can't handle tough conditions like darkness, fog glare, it raises some serious questions about the safety of these robotaxis.
And it's not just about the safety of the people inside the Cybercab either.
You're right. We have to think about pedestrians, cyclists, other drivers, everyone sharing the road with these autonomous vehicles.
Because even if Tesla's tech is 99% effective, that 1% chance of failure could be disastrous. And let's face it, humans are unpredictable.
Yeah. How will these robotaxis deal with sudden movements, jaywalkers, aggressive drivers?
Good question.
It's a complex problem. And while Tesla is betting on cameras to solve it, other companies are taking a more cautious approach. Companies like Waymo and Cruise are investing heavily in LiDAR.
LiDAR.
Yeah, it uses lasers to create a 3D map of the environment. So it's like giving these autonomous vehicles superpowered vision.
So they have a much better understanding of their surroundings.
Exactly. And we're already seeing companies like Mercedes getting approval for limited self-driving because of their use of LiDAR.
So it seems like the industry is leaning towards a more multi-sensor approach. While Tesla is sticking to their guns with the cameras.
It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy for sure.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen if they can really crack the code of autonomous driving this way.
But one thing's for certain, Tesla is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible and forcing us to confront all the challenges and complexities of this technology.
It's like they're holding a mirror up to the future of transportation, and it's both exciting and a little bit scary.
Yeah, it is. And it makes you wonder, what does all this mean for the future of transportation in general? If Tesla manages to get these cybercabs on the road and they actually work,
it would be a game changer.
Imagine a world where you could get a cheap ride anywhere, anytime, just by using your phone. No more traffic jams, no more stressful commutes.
It sounds amazing, but we also have to think about the potential downsides. What happens to people who make a living from driving?
Right? Do they just get left behind? Or do we find ways to help them transition to this new world?
It's a balancing act for sure. We need to embrace the potential of this technology, but also make sure we're not leaving anyone behind in the process.
And then there's the whole data privacy issue. If self-driving cars are collecting data about our every move,
who has access to that information? And how will it be used?
It's a valid concern. We're already having these debates about data privacy with our phones and social media.
Imagine how much more data these autonomous vehicles will be gathering.
It's a whole new can of worms.
We need to be careful and set clear rules about how this data is collected and used.
And here's another thing to think about. If robotaxis become the norm, how will that change our cities?
Will we need less parking? Will public transportation have to adapt?
These are questions that urban planners and policymakers are already wrestling with.
We're on the cusp of a revolution, and how we respond to these changes will shape the world for generations to come.
Yeah, it feels like we're figuring things out as we go along, right? Excited about the potential, but also a little nervous about all the unknowns.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to keep having these conversations, to really think critically about this technology.
We can't just blindly trust that tech will solve all our problems.
Right. We need to be actively involved in shaping how it's developed and used to make sure it benefits everyone.
So let's take a step back and recap what we've learned about Tesla's Cybercab and their big push into autonomous driving.
Well, we've seen how this could be a major turning point for Tesla, potentially shifting their focus from making cars to becoming a leader in this whole self-driving revolution.
But we've also uncovered some pretty serious challenges they're facing, from those regulatory hurdles and safety concerns to the intense competition and all those ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, their decision to rely so heavily on cameras for their autonomous driving system has definitely raised some eyebrows.
And sparked a lot of debate about whether they're cutting corners on safety in the name of efficiency.
Meanwhile, other companies are playing it a bit safer, focusing on those multi-sensor systems and getting approval for limited self-driving in specific areas.
So the race is on, and Tesla's journey with the Cybercab is giving us a front row seat to all the twists and turns of this technological revolution.
It's a wild ride for sure.
Yeah.
So why does all this matter to our listeners?
Yeah, why should people care about what's happening with Tesla and self-driving cars?
Because the choices we make about this technology today are going to shape the world we live in tomorrow. This isn't just about cool new gadgets, it's about the future of transportation and how we live our lives.
Imagine a world where you can get a ride anytime, anywhere, without even needing a driver. No more traffic jams, no more stressful commutes. It sounds pretty amazing.
But we also have to be realistic and think about the potential downsides.
What happens to the people whose jobs depend on driving? What about data privacy and surveillance? How do we make sure these self-driving cars are safe for everyone on the road?
These are questions we need to be asking as a society, and everyone's voice matters.
So as you continue to learn about self-driving cars, think critically, ask questions. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
What role do you want this technology to play in your life? What kind of safeguards do we need to put in place?
Have these conversations, share your thoughts, and help shape the future of transportation.
Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create together.
Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into Tesla's Cybercab and the future of autonomous driving. We hope you found this episode insightful and maybe even a little bit thought-provoking.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, and keep those wheels turning.
We'll see you next time.